Hungarian painter Károly Lotz was one of the greatest Hungarian academic painters in the style of Historicism. Between 1855 and 1870, Lotz painted his panneaux in a characteristically romantic style. The female portraits and nudes painted between 1855 and 1879 show the stylistic traits of lyrical realism and fine naturalism. Lotz was one of the most popular mural painters of this time. His murals were always in harmony with the style of the building they were designed for. The frieze compositions decorating the staircases of the Hungarian National Museum and the frescoes in the Budapest Vigadó Casino, both done jointly with Mortan, the ceiling of the opera's auditorium, and the murals in the House of Parliament are among his best-known works. The seventh and youngest surviving child of Wilhelm Christian Lotz and Antony Hoflich was born on December 16, 1833, in Bad Homburg-Wörthechow, Germany. His parents were Károly Lotz and Antony Hoflich. When Prince Gustav zu Hessen-Homburg represented Austria in the Congress of Vienna, where, among other things, the sovereignty of the House of Hessen-Homburg over Hessen-Darmstadt were discussed, his father served as the prince's valet. Young Baron von Sinclair, the chargé d'affaires, passed away unexpectedly, forcing Wilhelm Christian Lotz to temporarily fill the position. He met the 13-year-old Antony Hoflich while he was in Hungary in 1815, and they subsequently were married. Károly was the youngest of her 7 children, who were all born to her. After his father's death in 1837, his mother, Antony, relocated the family to Pest, now one of the 3 constituent parts of Budapest, the one on the east bank of the river Danube. Still a child, Károly presented himself in front of the children's expressions of art and became the delight of his small audience. So art has always expressed itself among humans. Despite being a Calvinist, Károly received a scholarship to the Pjaerges Gymnasium for his outstanding academic achievements. He first studied under Hauptmeister de Stouch before enrolling in the academy of Venetian master Jacob Marastoni. Later, he studied under the historical painters Karl Rahl in Vienna and Hendrik Weber in Budapest. He collaborated with Rahl on a number of commissions. Later, he began creating his own unique works, initially as a romantic landscape painter in scenes of the Hungarian lowland plain, and later as a maker of enormous murals and frescoes in the manner of the Venetian maestro Tiepolo. After producing many pieces in Budapest, he started working in Vienna. He produced murals commissioned by the abbot of Tieni Abbey for his abbey church on the shore of Lake Balaton and drew up plans for a lavish mansion. His wife and daughters posed for his portraits and nudes, for which he became well known. Lotz didn't experience marital pleasure until he was 58 years old, when he wed widowed Jacobi, the late wife of his brother Paul Johann Heinrich, who had passed away in 1828. He started signing his paintings Károly Jacobi Lotz after that. Lotz was appointed professor at several Budapest art academies in 1882, and he was named dean of a newly created department for women artists in 1885. He was a distinguished member of the Vienna Academy of Pictorial Arts. The apotheosis of the Habsburg dynasty, a massive ceiling fresco in the Habsburg room of the recently renovated Royal Palace, was his last significant public commission. He completed it in 1903, 1 year before his passing. When he began working on the fresco, Lotz was already gravely ill. The apotheosis adhered to the conventions of Baroque court painting, and critics of the day lauded the piece. The fresco was demolished in the 1950s, despite not being damaged during the war. In the hall of the Royal Castle Palace, he is already being carried on a stretcher onto the scaffolding. The energy he gets while working, the shapes, the colors, make him forget the pain. He paints, creates, then collapses again, only to rise again the next day. In addition to the great works, his daughter, Cornelia, fills his heart with warm love, who, like the sycamore tree, clings tenderly to the waist of the aging cedar, who becomes his comforting joy, encouraging muse, for whom his untiring soul shows his love in his great works, painting his apotheosis in 100 portraits. Resting in the warmth of love and melting in the affectionate true feelings of his friends, especially Bertalan Saleski, Lajos Ebner, and Laszlo Medjendesky, he lives and works with a quiet smile, continuously, until the last minute. Until finally, when he paints the portrait of a small child, the brush falls out of his hand. Just a few more strokes to complete the picture, which is still one of his most beautiful and charming works, even more interesting and precious. The brush falls from his hand. He collapses, becomes ill, and in his illness he endures the terribly torturous physical sufferings with the same majestic calmness as he endured the struggles of his soul. On October 13th, 1904, Lotz passed away in Budapest at the age of 70. He was given a state funeral and interred inside a memorial as a prince of Hungarian artists. More and more people are beginning to see his greatness, and more people are in a hurry to express their admiration for the deceased greatness, which they failed to do during his lifetime. Maybe they will think about it and wonder how it could have grown so much here among us. How is it that if a person could rise so high in this country, here among us, with his own talent, why didn't the country's culture also rise in a similar way? While he soared high, the entire nation hardly took a few steps forward in terms of culture. Was there this relationship, a development between Károly Lotz and the audience? Károly Lotz, according to my full conviction, should be ranked among the greatest talents of all time. It is also certain that Károly Lotz would not only have become Hungary's greatest artist, but with his enormous talent, he would have risen to the ranks of the greatest creators, if through that relationship he developed with the audience and the audience with him. To be able to assess the talent of Károly Lotz, we must draw a parallel between the path of great artists and his struggle. It is impossible to run through the history of the arts within the narrow framework of a character sketch, but if we even briefly compare their path with the development of the art closest to us, Christian art, up to the Renaissance, and the conditions in which art had to develop in the world, then perhaps it will emerge, Károly Lotz's individuality before people's souls. Then maybe they would understand who he was and what a talent he was, whom fate threw here among us. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel by selecting the subscribe button below. Please give us a thumbs up. Also, please feel free to share the video on your preferred social media service. We are super excited about you watching our video and look forward to your continued support. It means the world to us. See you in the following video.